Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, one of the great market greats. Knows all about cycles, all about Wall Street, all about worked at big brokerage houses. I'm talking about Charles Nenner. Charles Nenner, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Nice to be back.
Well, I want to start with some of the things I'm seeing from some big players. They're at your level. These are big, huge players. One of them is Jeff Gundlach, and he's talking about massive anxiety in the market. And another thing that really caught my eye was Bond King Bill Gross, who said that there's a day of reckoning coming, and he says the system itself is at risk. What are you hearing from your sources and your clients about how shaky things apparently are in the markets?
Well, as you maybe know, for many years, my attitude has been I don't want to know what other people say, because a lot of times I go against trend, and emotionally it's difficult to say I'm right and everybody's wrong. So I don't really listen to them. The thing is, I look at the junk bonds and the high yield bonds, and they're not at such an extreme right now. We're in big trouble. As you maybe remember, late 2014, where they discussed, also said it on CNBC, the equity market is going nowhere. And the end of the whole up move is going to be in September 2017. Well, we had, as we told the clients, the correction in the meantime, and we're back to the level where we were late in 2014. I still think that every big up move should be used to sell equities. We're going slowly to a major sell-off. You know, I still look for Dow Jones 5000. It has been published a lot. First thing is, I think the second half of 2016 is going to be a bad situation for stocks, but it's not going to be the big one. Again, the big one is going to start the third quarter of 2017, ending in 2020-21.
So this is why you're telling people go ahead and get out right now, because from here on out we're just going to have a declining stock market, correct?
Well, we're getting everybody out at 2120, 2130 in 2014, and that was a good idea because the indices might hold up, but a lot of stocks that tanked really big, especially during the correction. I look at DuPont, I look at ExxonMobil was down 30%, Walmart down 30%. Not everybody had the guts not to take a loss. So this doesn't lead to anything. So we're already out since the end of 2014. We were in a 10-year notes. I see a little bit risk in a 10-year notes, but I don't think the yield will go above 2%. And later this year, I expect the bond market to go up again because the deflation will continue, especially because China will be weak again. What they did now on the monetary front is just temporary, and in a couple of months it will not continue. So deflation is still the problem, and we have these low interest rates, so it's going to be very difficult in the next recession to do anything to help the economy.
So do you think that... Go ahead.
The Fed is looking at indicators like unemployment, and based on their unemployment ideas, I still think September, December, with 2 times, we'll have a Fed hike, which will scare the market also. So I guess according to the numbers that the Fed looks at, they should hike 2 times. But on the long-term picture, we're going to be in big trouble.
Do you think the Fed's going to hike in June or July? I mean, I find it hard.
I think September, December.
Do you think they'll hike just before the November election?
Yeah, I think September, December.
Whew, that will kill the Democrats if they hike in September. So you think a hike a quarter you think a quarter in September and a quarter in December?
Yeah, well, maybe I don't know. September, a bad stock market is bad for the sitting party. So maybe that's I don't say they're politically doing anything, but June will be too early. Maybe in September, and then if October the market comes down, then maybe it doesn't influence that much. A couple of weeks later, the select elections. But I think the market will turn down before that. I think in the summer, after the summer, the whole second part of the year will not be good.
Do you think that the dollar will crash? A lot of people are thinking the dollar is going to crash, and they're not going to deliver gold, and we could have a big calamity. This year that a lot of people are forecasting this fall could be a calamity. What say you about this?
I think the dollar will still stay strong. There's no extreme in the dollar rate. If interest rates are going up in the United States and down in Europe, why wouldn't, simply speaking, why wouldn't you keep dollars? The U.S. economy is still better than the European economy. So I'm not sure why people think that a dollar could crash.
So do you think if the dollar doesn't crash, do you think what is your look on gold then? I mean, a lot
Well,
of people.
first of all, the problem in the stock market is if the dollar is strong, that's even worse for the profits of the companies, which is one reason that if the dollar continues up, you're almost sure that the stock market's coming down.
And
Now,
that, yeah.
gold, I don't. You remember we said that there was a low in gold. When did we talk last? A year and a half ago or so?
No, about a year. About a year. You said it wouldn't go, and you were right about this, incidentally. Around 1100, you said, or 1120, 30, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't know exactly, but you said it wouldn't go much lower lower than 1050 or 1040, or it wouldn't go much lower than that. I mean, it may down to something like that. You were right. It didn't go much lower.
So we bought especially the gold stocks. I remember Newmont Mining. We bought, I think, at $12 or so, and the cycle looked toppy 2 weeks ago, so we sold it. I think we have seen most of the upside for gold for the moment. We have a short-term downside target of 1187. If it holds there, we could see one more rally, but especially if the Fed hikes interest rates, I don't see gold going very far.
So you think that gold is pretty much topped out right where it is, right here in the 12, I don't know, 1200, 1215,
Yeah, but I said if it holds the 1187, it will go back to 1240, 50 where it was one more time. But I think most of it has been seen.
And what about all this manipulation? Deutsche Bank admitted to manipulating the gold and the silver market a few months ago. I know you saw that. And they also said that Bank of Nova Scotia and HSBC and were involved in some other all primary dealers and treasuries. What do you say about that in terms of this? That's pretty big manipulation when primary dealers of treasuries are manipulating the market. What do you say about the gold market? Are they ever going to stop manipulating?
I say manipulation is impossible, and I'll tell you why. If you look at my research, and we can predict the gold prices every week and 3 times a week and the interest rates, and we're 100% correct, how can there be manipulation? So manipulation is part of the market. For instance, when Greenspan was doing his thing, I always used to say Greenspan, before he became, an important person at Fed, was not such a great person in the financial market. And Greenspan was just part of the investing population, like the people that you talk about now are just part of the investing population. So if gold goes up because people have a fundamental reason or it's manipulation, doesn't matter. It goes the way it goes. And to say that they manipulate the price and they succeeded, they might manipulate the price, I say it doesn't make any difference. You can try to manipulate the price higher, but if the cycles are down, it doesn't work. If the cycles are up, it works, but it would have been gone up anyway because the cycles are up. So I don't believe in any manipulation.
So, and a lot of people will hear this and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, well, HSBC admitted to it. They settled a case and said, yeah, we manipulated the gold and silver markets." But you're saying that the trend is
well, because they didn't. I don't think they could prove that it succeeded. So the question is, what's the problem? That you try to manipulate or that you succeed? Let's take the Hunt brothers in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Now, the 80s, if they would have had a very simple chart, I will tell you about the commodities, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The commodities for hundreds of years have a very clear cycle. Every 30 years is a top in a commodity. So let's go back a little bit what we remember. In 1920, there was a high, right? In 1950, there was a high. In 1980, there was a high. In 2010, there was a high. Now, usually the bear market takes 20, 30 years. That's important to know now, because don't look that the bear market is over, because it needs much more time. So the Hunt brothers tried to manipulate the silver market. If they would have had their hands on a simple commodity chart of the last 300 years, they would have known that there is a top in 1980.
So,
So you try to manipulate, but it doesn't succeed. The question is, are you guilty? It's an interesting question.
so you're saying the cycles are so big, that the market forces are so big that you can try and maybe you might move it a little bit here and there, but the overarching cycle, the trend, you can't interrupt the overarching trend.
Right? If the Hunt brothers would have taken the cycle low and starting manipulate silver, they would have succeeded, but they did it right at the top. So apart from that, just remember, it's very important if you want to understand something about what's going on in commodities. Every 30 years, there's a top. And from the low to the top, usually it makes a bull market of 400, 450% every time. Now, can you manipulate that? That's too much coincidence. Every time 450%, and every time exactly every 30 years a major top.
Okay, so when do you think, so people watching this are going to be saying, okay, so ask him, when is gold and silver going to take off? I mean, we're not going to get $5,000 gold this year, then are we, according to you?
Well, gold is a separate thing because it's not only commodity. If things get very bad, they might go back what Nixon stopped to connect the dollar to the gold standard. Now, if he would do that, I don't know how high. If he would do it now, I think gold would be like maybe 50,000, 20,000. So there's a special situation if things get very, very bad, what the situation with gold would be. So that's not only commodity, that could be a very extreme situation.
Would silver also go up with that?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Because there is a gold-silver ratio, and it cannot get too much out of hand.
Okay, then good. Then when do you think that we could get a big spike in gold? Because you're saying right now, the way it looks to your cycles, we're going to be right where we are at the end of the year, 12, 1,300, somewhere in that neighborhood. Is that right?
Yeah, also next year.
Also next year. So we're not going to get a big spike.
Nothing happening in gold.
Nothing happening in gold this year and next year, according to your cycle work.
Right.
Okay, good. Then what about the war cycle? I know you do a lot about that too, and I don't mean to be dark and gloomy, but man, there is all these rumblings in the South China Sea. The Chinese just recently put up an air defense thing. They're talking about the U.S. is messing with them, and they are provoking them. We have.
Well, you remember we talked about that 2 years ago, and it said, "How do you know there's trouble in the Chinese Sea?" I said because the aerospace industry in China is taking off. It's going to the roof, so they were preparing something.
That's right. You did say that. Yes. So what does it look like now in China, the Middle East? What does it look like now?
Like if cycles in the stock market are down, a lot of stocks go down, and they all have their own story. Now, in all kinds of places, you have wars, and they all have their own story. So we're still looking overall for the big one.
The big war. You think that you're forecasting a big war coming up?
I still think it's going to be in China, maybe Korea, in that neighborhood. I think because I think the rest is going to stay under control.
So you don't think that the Middle East is going to spin out of control what you're saying is that you don't take your eyes off the Middle East. Forget about that for now. You're saying that take a look at the South China Sea. That's going to be where there's going to be a big conflict. Is that correct?
Yeah, because things always come from the unexpected places.
That's right. Well, now, does this play into it too? China, there's the forecast in China is what they say about China is you can't believe their numbers, and then the numbers you do see look awful. That China is having a horrible time, and people like Gerald Celente say when all else fails, they take you to war. Could the Chinese want to go to war to cover up their terror?
It's not the Chinese. The Chinese have two directions: Confucius and Lao Tse. And Confucius is not that strong anymore. It's more Lao Tse, with is Tao Te Ching for people who want to know about it, and that is still. Concentrating more on inland than expanding outside. The Chinese are not so expensive. They don't expand wars to the outside world. How it's going to play out exactly, I don't know. But it's not the usual way of thinking.
Do you think that it could go nuclear if the U.S. and China mix it up in the South China Sea? I mean, they're as you correctly predicted, you said aerospace is going to be a big deal. Aerospace is going crazy. Is Japan going to be dragged into this? Is Korea? I mean, excuse me. Is South Korea?
I think Korea, Japan, is it nuclear? Well, we discussed years ago that every war has more casualties than the ones before. So, if a big war, then the probably going to be more casualties in the Second World War. So it's not going to be fun.
Do you think that what do you make of Barack Obama talking about Vietnam getting new weapons? They're taking the embargo off the weapons, and apparently the U.S. is going to be giving Vietnam weapons, which I immediately thought, wow, China's going to love that. Their neighbor to the south.
We talked also about the aerospace industry in Vietnam. If you look back on what we discussed about 2 years ago. But I have to tell you, whenever I see Obama, I go to the other channel. It makes me so sick, these people, I don't listen to them anymore.
What do you think about him saying that he's going to lift the arms embargo to Vietnam? What is that? Is that just more of your analysis of that there's going to be a big war in that part of the world?
I really don't listen to Obama.
Okay.
I couldn't care less what he says or what he does. I mean, it's absolutely. I'm not American, so let me not go into it. But I'm not listening to them. Nobody listens to the guy.
Okay, so forecast this fall, we're going to get the market. Are you saying that the market is topped out right here, and it's going to be down from here going into the fall?
Yeah.
And
then
then
till the end of the year.
I'm sorry. Say it again. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
It could be till the end of the year.
And then you're just a declining market all the way into the end of the year, and gold is going to be steady. And when do you expect the big market crash? And I just want to get you to focus on that. And you said 2017.
There is a problem which you can understand. We didn't discuss it. Why all over the world people like Trump are winning? How come this phenomenon of Trump and also in other countries came up? Well, I explain it to you, and then you know what is going to create the problem. The middle class, like you hear everywhere in the United States, is going under. Now, the middle class had a difficult time for many, many years. So what did they do? They managed to take mortgages, they managed to take loans, so they kept the level of living on a nice level. But after 2000, 2007, 2008, it's very hard to get those loans. So the middle class could not adapt themselves to a bad situation by taking loans and still having a nice level of existence. So that's why they're so angry, and that's why they're voting for Trump. And the same thing happens in Europe. You have to understand this phenomenon. They don't come out of blue air. So the crisis of 2007-8 leads to the fact that Trump has a good chance to become president. Now, if this whole middle class is going under, right, the glue that keeps up societies together is not going to be there. So we're going to be, socially speaking, in a very terrible state. And then, especially in Europe, if the markets go down more, people don't get the pensions anymore. The pension funds get maybe 0.25% on their 30-year or 10-year notes in euros. So how can they ever provide pensions for the next generation? Now, if the stocks also tank, it's going to be a crisis. So you're going to have social problems everywhere.
Yo, and I read an article online just recently. It's talking about the big mess that the Federal Reserve has made with the pensions. They basically destroyed the pensions with all these 0% interest rates. So the pensions, in your estimation, they're done. They're toast.
They're already going down every couple of months. People get less.
And that's because of the Fed, and that's not going to make anybody happy. You're just saying that's going to be.
Now again, let's just go with my system of approaching reality. It doesn't matter what the Fed would have done; it would have happened anyway. If the Fed would not exist, interest rates would be where they are now, just because of the market.
So interest rates.
So they lose to think that the Fed is like a Freudian figure that oversees it and can take care of everything. It has. We don't need the Fed, right? There were for hundreds of years there was no Fed and things functioned. And what the Fed did, I think in the early 1900s they started. It says it's not good to have big recession or depression. What we do is we start fooling around with the money supply, so we will not have these big up and downs anymore. And this is impossible. So if you go against those laws of nature, economic nature, then you get the huge crisis at the end, which you cannot fix anymore. So we really don't need the Fed.
There's a lot of people that are going to be saying amen to that, brother. I will ask you one question. What are you telling people to put their money? Where are you telling people? Are you buy real estate? Are you telling people not to buy gold, artwork?
Last couple of years, buy small apartments and rent them out. At least, like I agree with the guys who were saying, if the whole financial system collapses, you have something. The price might go down until 2020, 21, but you can rent it out. And if you watch my cycles, at least you know after 4 years the price will go up again, and you survive.
So you tell people buy real estate rental property to rent it out to people because
small rentals, yeah.
Small rental property. Okay, Charles Nenner, thank you for joining us today. Where are you today? Are you in Belgium? Where are you?
No, I'm in Amsterdam right now.
You're in Amsterdam. Okay. Well, listen, thank you for coming on. I mean, what your view is a lot different than other people's views, but I try to put on a variety of views, and you certainly are a smart guy, and a lot of the stuff you said happened, and I appreciate it. Charles Nenner, thank you so much for joining us today.
Just because times are so difficult, as you might remember, we give our research for free for a couple of months for everybody to try it. So go to Charles Nenner Research and just ask for the research and see if you like it. So you're not going to pay anything for a couple of months, and it's going to help you through the second half of this year, which is going to be very difficult.
And you would not tell people to buy gold at this point. You would just
no.
And you don't think do you, or I don't know if you do or not. Do you think there's going to be a banking crisis where there could be bail-ins coming up?
I think it's going to be a huge crisis, and I think everything will be out of control. That's why I said, take the money out of the system, take it out of the bank, and buy small apartments.
So
what happens in a deflationary crisis? Stocks go down, bonds can go down because of liquidity traps, like you saw in Greece, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So people first look at the stocks. They need money, they sell the stocks, right? Now they need more money, they sell their bonds. And why? Because they walk around the building and they see something that really exists, buildings. So buildings is the last thing they sell. So that's the safest place to have stones and have buildings, and they will always come back.
And the big crisis is we have rolling crisis basically between now and the fall of 2017. So the next year and a half or so is gonna be rough. It's going to be difficult, but not the big crisis. The emerging markets is a place to short the market. We short the emerging market all the time. That's where the crisis is going to continue at the Weak Brothers. But I think you really will see that everything is pretty much stable, going up and down until the third quarter of 2017. I think we really have to talk a half a year before that, because people forget, and it's very important to somebody put your nose on the situation. Charles Nenner, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. Really appreciate it. And we'll link to your website. We'll link to your Charles Nenner research and charlesnenner.com. I believe that's what your website is, right?
Correct.
We'll link to all that. And for you YouTube people, you can just click back to the USA Watchdog site, and we'll put you right through the Charles Nenner. And a couple of months for free. That's fantastic. Charles Nenner, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Welcome. We'll talk again. Bye.